Maria Delgado pulled into her driveway and stopped breathing for one frozen second. A heavy steel chain wrapped tightly around the gate leading to her own farmland. Her hands trembled as she touched the cold padlock blocking her family's entrance. "This cannot be real," she whispered, staring at the laminated notice taped above it. The paper bore Sandra Whitfield's signature. Board President of the Meadowbrook Hills HOA. It claimed her farmland violated an obscure bylaw about unauthorized agricultural use of land. Maria had grown vegetables there for 3 years without a single complaint filed. Her late husband had planted that orchard the same spring their daughter was born. Now strangers had locked her out of soil that held every memory she owned. She called the HOA office. But the line rang endlessly into empty silence. Her neighbor Tom Reyes jogged over. Phone raised. Already recording the absurd scene. "They did this at dawn," Tom said. Voice tight with disbelief and anger. "Sandra's truck was here before sunrise. Watching workers install that lock," he added. Maria's chest tightened as old fears about being targeted resurfaced all at once. She had moved from Texas hoping for peace. Not another battle over belonging. Her daughter Lily appeared at the porch door, asking why Mommy looked so upset. Maria forced a smile, promising everything would be fixed before dinner that evening. Inside, boxes for the property deed. She found it quickly. The ink faded but the boundaries clearly marked in black. Nothing in the document mentioned any restriction against growing food on her land. By noon, invited. Clipboard pressed against her chest like armor. "Mrs. Your farmland creates an eyesore that lowers our community's overall value," she said. Maria's jaw tightened as she fought to keep her voice calm and steady. "This is private land. Separate from the HOA's residential jurisdiction," she replied firmly. Sandra's smile thinned into something colder. Sharper. Tension. "Rules are rules. Regardless of what paperwork you believe protects you," she snapped. Frank Boone, 3 houses down, wheeled his cane forward slowly. "I've watched this woman work that land every morning before sunrise," he said. Sandra ignored him, turning back toward her car without offering any further explanation. Maria watched her drive away, fury and helplessness colliding inside her trembling chest. Tom placed a steady hand on her shoulder, urging her not to give up. "There's a pattern here," he said, voice low and serious with concern. "The Pattersons left last year after Sandra targeted their wheelchair ramp constantly," he explained. Maria's stomach dropped, realizing this abuse of power reached further than she imagined. That night, through old HOA meeting minutes online for hours, she discovered Sandra had personally approved exceptions for friends living closer to her. Anger sharpened into purpose as Maria opened a blank document and began typing notes. She would not be silenced. Intimidated. Owned. Lily wandered in, asking softly if they were really going to fight back. Maria knelt down, holding her daughter's hands with quiet, unwavering determination. "Yes. Nobody gets to lock us out of our own home." Outside, chained gate like a silent, waiting challenge. Maria closed her laptop, knowing tomorrow would mark the beginning of her resistance. The next morning, recorder's office before sunrise. She requested certified copies of her deed and every recorded easement on file. The clerk frowned. Existed anywhere within her property lines. Maria's pulse quickened. Realizing Sandra's notice had no legal foundation whatsoever behind it, she thanked the clerk and immediately called a local attorney named Rachel Kim. Rachel listened carefully, then asked Maria to forward every document she currently possessed. "This sounds like fraud." "Not enforcement," Rachel said, voice sharp with growing interest. Maria felt a flicker of hope ignite beneath months of suffocating frustration and worry. That afternoon, holding a folder thick with evidence, "I talked to 3 other families Sandra pushed out over fabricated violations," he said. One was a young immigrant couple denied a ramp despite their son's medical needs. Another was Frank Boone, threatened with fines for flying his veteran's flag too high. Maria realized Sandra wasn't enforcing rules, she was weaponizing them against anyone different. Rage and clarity merged inside her, transforming fear into focused, unstoppable determination. She began recording every interaction, saving emails, and documenting timestamps with precision. Sandra noticed the shift and grew visibly agitated during the next HOA meeting. "Mrs. Unnecessary drama within our peaceful community," Sandra announced. Maria stood calmly, holding printed copies of the deed for everyone to see. "There is no bylaw restricting agricultural use on privately deeded farmland," she stated. Murmurs spread through the room as neighbors exchanged uncertain, questioning glances with each other. Sandra's confidence cracked slightly, though she quickly masked it with practiced authority. "The board will review your claims," she said, dismissing the room abruptly afterward. Outside, gripping her hand with quiet, proud admiration. "You just did something none of us had the courage to attempt," he said. That night, news that shifted everything dramatically forward. "I found financial records showing Sandra approved contracts benefiting her brother's construction company," she said. Maria's breath caught, realizing this conflict ran far deeper than petty harassment alone. Sandra hadn't just abused power, she had profited illegally from manipulated HOA decisions. Rachel explained they could file a lawsuit alleging fraud against the entire board. Maria hesitated, fear creeping back as she imagined retaliation against her small family. But then she remembered the chained gate and her daughter's frightened, confused face. "Let's do it," Maria said, voice steady despite her racing heartbeat. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood, and families began reaching out with support. The Pattersons offered testimony about their forced removal due to accessibility discrimination. The immigrant family shared documents proving repeated denials despite meeting every requirement listed. Maria realized she wasn't fighting alone anymore, an entire community stood beside her. Sandra scheduled an emergency meeting to control the narrative. She accused Maria of slander, hoping fear would silence the growing rebellion. Instead, phone raised, proving Sandra's manipulation clearly. Gasps echoed through the room as residents realized how deeply they'd been deceived. Sandra's hands trembled slightly, her composure finally beginning to visibly unravel. Maria watched the woman who once locked her out now facing genuine consequences. The battle was no longer about one gate or one family's land. It had become a fight for justice against years of unchecked abuse. 3 weeks later, Maria stood outside the county courthouse with Rachel by her side. Reporters gathered nearby, drawn by whispers of fraud within a powerful local HOA. Inside, neighbors who had finally found their voice. Sandra Whitfield sat rigid at the defense table, her lawyer whispering anxious instructions. Rachel presented evidence methodically, exposing falsified violations and manipulated financial agreements clearly. She revealed contracts funneling thousands of dollars toward Sandra's brother's construction business secretly. The judge's expression hardened as document after document confirmed deliberate, calculated deception. Maria took the stand, voice trembling but unwavering as she described that morning. She described the chained gate, her daughter's fear, and months of relentless harassment. This wasn't about rules, she said. It was about controlling people who looked different. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as her words struck deep. Undeniable truth. Frank Boone testified next, recounting threats made against his honored veterans flag. The immigrant family shared their painful story of repeated discrimination disguised as policy. Sandra's lawyer objected repeatedly, but the evidence proved impossible to refute or dismiss. By the final day, the entire HOA board, Sandra Whitfield was found guilty of fraud, abuse of authority, and discrimination. She lost her position immediately, stripped of power she had wielded so cruelly. The court ordered full restitution, including legal fees and emotional distress damages paid. Maria's farmland was unlocked permanently. The chain finally cut before cheering neighbors. Sandra exited the courthouse alone, abandoned by the very people she once controlled. Her construction contracts collapsed under public scrutiny, ruining her family's tarnished reputation completely. No one waved. No one offered comforting words anymore. Meanwhile, farmland. Sunlight spilling across open, unguarded soil. Lily ran ahead. Vegetables finally safe again. Tom and Frank stood by the gate, smiling as the community celebrated together. Neighbors brought food, flowers, staying silent for too long. Maria knelt beside her husband's orchard, tears falling onto soil she had fought for. "We did it," she whispered, voice breaking with relief and overwhelming gratitude. The HOA elected new leadership focused on fairness, transparency. Stories of Maria's courage spread throughout neighboring towns, inspiring others to speak up. Families who once felt powerless began questioning unfair rules within their own communities. Maria often said justice doesn't arrive quietly, it demands courage and unwavering persistence. Her farmland became a symbol of resilience against quiet, unchecked abuses of power. Every harvest reminded her that fear could be replaced with strength and unity. Sandra Whitfield's name became a warning, not an example. Within local HOA history, Maria's victory proved that even ordinary people could dismantle corrupt systems through truth. Standing among her thriving crops, she finally felt completely, undeniably at peace. Justice had not just unlocked a gate, it had restored her family's dignity. And in that quiet farmland, hope had firmly, permanently taken root again.